The fire that refused to burn the night god cooled the flames. They did not gather to witness. They gathered to enjoy it. In Nimrod's kingdom, public execution was not punishment, it was demonstration. A reminder, carved in fear, of who held power and what happened to those who questioned it. The crowd that assembled that morning did not come reluctantly. They came because not coming was its own kind of danger. You watched. You approved. You went home and you never spoke the name Ibrahim again. The fire had been burning for 3 days before they were ready. Ibrahim had done the unthinkable. Not quietly, not in secret in broad daylight, in the most sacred space in the city. While the people were away at their festival, he had walked into the temple of their gods, surveyed the rows of idols gold-plated, jeweled, carved by human hands and called divine, and destroyed every single one except the largest. Then he placed the axe around the neck of the one he'd spared and walked out. When they returned to find the wreckage, he stood before them and said, "Ask them. The large one has the axe." Perhaps he did it. He had been saying it for years. That the statues could not hear, could not help, could not harm. That a god who cannot protect itself from a man with an axe is not worth the gold it was cast from. The people had ignored him at first, then argued, then grown quietly afraid not of Ibrahim, but of the question he kept asking, the one they could not answer. Nimrod could not allow the question to keep being asked. Nimrod had not become king by doubting himself. He was a man who had looked at the sky, at the stars, at the sun, at the vast indifferent machinery of the heavens, and decided that if something that powerful existed, it would have already made itself useful to him. Since it had not, he concluded that he was the most powerful thing in any room he entered. His gods were tools. His people were tools. Power was the only truth he had ever believed in, and he had spent his entire life proving himself right. Then Ibrahim walked out of a ruined temple, and the question spread through the city like smoke under a door. What if the statues are nothing? Nimrod understood immediately what was at stake. It was not theology. It was not religion. It was the foundation of everything: his throne, his authority, the entire architecture of fear and obedience that kept 600,000 people from asking what would happen if they stopped obeying. One young man with an axe and a question had put a crack in the wall. The fire would close the crack. He ordered it built large enough to be seen from every corner of the kingdom. Large enough that the outcome would be beyond any doubt, beyond any miracle. A fire so enormous and so final that the name Ibrahim would become, forever, a warning rather than a question. He wanted God, whatever God Ibrahim kept invoking, to watch and do nothing. The fire was a living thing by the time it was ready. It generated its own wind, pulling the surrounding air into itself, feeding constantly, consuming everything within reach. Birds altered their flight paths far above it, circling wide, unwilling to pass over the column of heat that rose from its center. The priests who tended it could not approach within 40 yards. The heat warped the air itself, bending the world visible beyond it into something unrecognizable. They built a catapult to throw Ibrahim in. No man could carry him close enough. He was bound, loaded, aimed at the center, the deepest, oldest, hottest part of the fire, where the original logs had been burning for 3 days and the ground itself had turned to char. In those final seconds, the angel Jibril descended to him and asked, "Is there anything you need?" Ibrahim looked at the fire, at the crowd, at the sky above both. "From you nothing. God knows my situation. That is enough." The arm of the catapult swung. He moved through the air in silence, the roar of the fire below him rising to meet him, the heat pressing against his face and hands. Even at that height, the crowd below gone quiet for the first time since morning, every eye tracking the arc of a man they were certain was already dead. He entered the fire. And in the instant he did, in the precise moment his body crossed from the burning air into the burning center, something happened that had never happened before in the history of fire. The fire received a command. Not from Ibrahim. Not from any human voice. From the same will that had ignited the first flame at the beginning of creation, that had set the sun burning at the edge of the universe, that had given fire its nature and its appetite in the first place. The command was not a negotiation. It was not a request. It was the owner of all things speaking to one of his creations and telling it, simply and absolutely, what to do next. Cool. And be safe. The flames did not extinguish. The logs did not stop burning. From the outside, from where the crowd stood watching, nothing visible changed. The fire roared. The smoke rose. The heat pressed outward in waves that made the front rows of the crowd step back. But at the center, in the place where Ibrahim had landed, the fire became something it had never been. It burned around him. It burned above him and below him and on every side of him. But it did not burn him. The air near his skin was cool. Not warm. Not bearable. Cool the way air feels near water, near shade, near something that has decided to protect rather than destroy. The only things the fire consumed were his ropes. He sat in the center of the inferno, unbound, unharmed, breathing slowly, and waited. The crowd did not understand what they were looking at when the fire finally fell. When the logs collapsed inward and the flames dropped and the smoke thinned and the air cleared, they saw a shape in the ashes. It took several seconds to resolve into something recognizable. A man. Sitting upright. Whole, Ibrahim stood and walked out of the fire. No burns. No wounds. The smell of smoke barely on his clothes. He walked out the same way he had walked into the temple, directly, unhurriedly, as a man walks when he knows exactly where he is going and why. Nimrod sat on his platform above the crowd and did not speak. He had constructed the fire to silence a question. Instead, he had built the largest possible stage and handed it to the thing he feared most. Every person in that crowd, every person who had come to watch Ibrahim die, to confirm that power was absolute and questions were fatal, had now seen with their own eyes what fire does when God decides otherwise. He had wanted God to watch and do nothing. God had watched and done everything. Ibrahim dusted the ash from his hands. He had entered the fire with nothing, no plan, no weapon, no escape. He had asked for nothing except to be known. And he had been known completely, precisely, in the moment it mattered most, by the one who had made both the fire and the man standing inside it. Nimrod's fire had proven exactly the opposite of what Nimrod intended. Ibrahim did not ask to be rescued. He only asked that God know his situation. And in that moment, in the center of the largest fire a king could build, he discovered that being known by God is the only protection that cannot be taken away.